When you think, yeah, this is Utah, what usually comes to mind? There's a good chance it's something about food, faith, the environment, or just something unforgettable. Well, that's what pop artist Kent Christensen aims to capture in his paintings of Utah. He's pushing boundaries and making people think outside of the box, one green jello mold at a time.
Humor has always been an important part of my life, and so I did this one painting. It was a stack of green jello. And of course, you can't really stack green jello in 7 cubes high. It doesn't work. So it's sort of like you just take out your artist's license, and no one will know that that can't actually be done. It was colorful and poppy and also kind of dark at the same time, the kind of attraction, revulsion thing that you can do with art. When people sort of recognize that in my work, it's not straight up still life, it's more like still life, but with a little bit of an edge. Growing up in the Mormon culture, as I did, whether we knew it or not, we were kind of creating a substitute vice out of sugar, you know, where, well, we're not drinking beer, we're not smoking. And at one point in time, one of my friends, she said, I figured you out, sugar is the Mormon heroin. And that's what you guys do. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I think you're right about that. I've done a lot of spiral taffy paintings ever since I kind of adopted the spiral jetty as one of my main kind of reference points in my work. And I include the jetty in many of my paintings. Plus, it just looks really cool. Spirals are really cool things. And I will build. The motion of the painting also includes many spirals. So the tail of the dinosaur is a spiral. The smoke is spiraling up in the top of the painting. The title of the painting I came up with was Secrets of the Great Salt Lake. And I don't think I've ever done anything quite as complex as this. I decided to put Brigham Young riding a dinosaur just because I thought it was so like anachronistic, but also kind of perfect, you know, in a way. I started priming this canvas more than a year ago. I wouldn't be surprised if I've spent like 500 hours on this project. I mean, I wanted it to be kind of a Valentine to the Wasatch Mountains and Utah. And it really was a direct outgrowth of feeling connected to this place. This, for me, has been like a way to have a conversation with a painting that I first saw when I was like 22 years old in Spain, The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch, and that I've constantly always been aware of and kind of obsessed with just because it is such a brilliant piece of narrative painting, and a lot of it is kind of indecipherable. And people have tried to decode it forever, and I kind of want to do that with my work too, because it's not like I want to tell a story that everyone gets as soon as they see it. I want them to really struggle with it and try to figure out what it means to them. And frankly, it'll mean something different to them than it means to me or the next person, and that's totally great. I love that better than if I'm just sort of trying to tell people what they should see in a painting. You know, I built a temple out of Coke bottles a few years back, 130-odd Coke bottles, all with gold leaf on them, and I would sit back and listen to the reactions of people, and some people were kind of a little bit offended by that, but other people most people would just say, hey, this is like the story of my life. I'm so addicted to Coke, and, you know, I'm a Mormon, so. And ironically, a lot of that stuff that I was doing in the 80s and 90s, that's the world I used to live in advertising and illustration, had to do with food. But not just food, it had to do with things people were obsessed with. So computers were an obsession. Food has always been an obsession for everybody. I like to create work that shows kind of human intimacy in a lot of ways, whether it's about some sort of special meal that you once had with someone, whether it's a place that has significance in a relationship that you have had. To me, it's part of the essential thread that runs through all of my work. I'm tracing off a sketch that I did of the train that I refined a few weeks ago. This is like a more happy train. This is a kind of sinister train that has toxic waste and stuff like that on it. Well, the train, it commemorates the anniversary of the Intercontinental Railroad meeting in Promontory, which is up in Box Elder County, where my dad's people are all from. My great-great-grandfather, he was one of the first white kids born in Salt Lake City. He didn't know anything about what a train was, but he kept hearing about this thing coming to Utah. And it ends up that the train is going to meet up at Promontory on May 10th, 1869, on his birthday, his 19th birthday. Can you imagine anything more exciting than that? I think I've been teaching about 200 students during the course of this particular project, so it's been interesting. They all know about it.
Sketchbooks.
I would come in either exhausted or excited or both and tell them, because I'm always asking them, well, did you get into the zone this weekend? Did you get really deep into a project where you just forgot about sleeping and eating and could do nothing but your project? And so a lot of times they did, and I would give them examples of myself, you know, being in that experience, which has been mostly around this piece. I always encourage my students to figure out what it is that gets them into the zone. For me, I have to do something physical, so whether it's summer or winter, I go outside. And it's kind of a perfect kind of jump start for me to get back into the studio after I've been out here, cleared my head a bit. Not to mention inspiration, no end of it. I love that. A lot of times my ideas for paintings just arise kind of out of seemingly nowhere, just from my sketchbook. And if it has some other kind of complexity that kind of fuels it and powers it, it becomes kind of an obsession. It's a little bit like Close Encounters and I become Richard Dreyfuss, you know, and I just can't do anything except make this triptych or build that temple out of Coke bottles or paint that chocolate fish. The spring salon deadline is tomorrow, so I'm trying to get this finished and then deliver it by tomorrow afternoon down in Springville. It sort of feels a little bit like crossing a threshold. It's intoxicating to be at this point. I look at the painting and I see almost endless possibilities of little tweaks I could do, and that's why it's really good to have a deadline. I'd rather do this right now than eat or sleep or anything else.
I want to welcome you to this celebration for the 95th annual Spring Salon. 95 years. What a wonderful tradition and heritage here in Springville, Utah.
And I may actually do another one, a really big one, that has more stuff in it. It's a great kind of storytelling device. There's like endless possibilities there. And so my way of doing social, cultural satire it's like my way of just saying, hey, here's what I think about that. And you might not even understand what I'm trying to say, but at least maybe it's pretty to look at. I don't know.
This is Utah is made possible in part by the George S. and Dolores Story Eccles Foundation, the Utah Office of Tourism, the Lawrence T. and Janet T. D. Foundation, and the contributing members of KUED. Thank you.